God will wipe away the tears from all faces. In the name of a God who holds us close. Amen. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's the Feast of All Saints. If we were a cathedral, it's one of the four main feasts of the church, a baptismal feast day, a day for baptizing, remembering our individual baptisms, and for us to be reminded that we are the baptized, that we, Church of the Holy Trinity in Manistee, have, like Jesus, been picked and possessed by the divine. And on this particular feast day, we remember the dead. Some churches have a unique practice of remembering those who have died by telling stories about loved ones or friends who have been assumed up into the divine. Sometimes those churches ask members to bring pictures or relics, items that help us remember those whom we loved and still love. Times where I've been a part of those services, I bring a small Bible and place it on the altar. This Bible is the Bible that my grandfather Mel carried through World War II. The Bible has a zipper on it. It is so unique and meaningful to me. I also drink Mountain Dew on All Saints Day because Grandpa Mel loved Mountain Dew. It's the only time each year that I drink Mountain Dew because it tastes terrible. Grandpa Mel also loved Klondike bars. Maybe I'll buy the kids some Klondike bars today. Grandpa Mel was married to Grandma Grace, a very kind and gentle woman. She was so soft and cuddly. I can still remember sitting on her lap and what that felt like. Grandma Grace always hid Kleenexes in her sleeve or under her watch. This was always a mystery to me. Every trip to Grandpa and Grandma Barron's house ended with us stalling and dragging our feet as my folks tried to get us out the door. Grandma had a paper cup dispenser at her sink. You remember Josh? This is my brother, Josh. These cups filled my tummy with about a shot glass worth of water, but they had a cartoon or a joke on them. I'd fight with my brother for the most desirable of the two options. On the Feast of All Saints, I also remember my maternal grandmother, Marie. Grandma Marie was wonderful. She had a laugh that was so loud, it was almost a cackle. She loved to laugh. She loved to play cards and tell stories. Grandma Marie's fried chicken is legendary in my enormous family. I love to ask my mother about it. Grandma would make 2 chickens when my mom was growing up. My mom says that each chicken was cut into 8 pieces. My mom was one of 12 children. These 2 chickens would feed the whole family, and a couple of the brothers would get 2 pieces. It was always a bad day when my mom got a thigh piece to eat, she said. Grandma also had arthritis and had the most twisted fingers I've ever seen. I remember holding her hand and tracing the zigzags of each finger. Grandma Marie was married to Chris, my paternal grandfather. He was also in World War II, but was in the Navy. Grandpa Chris came home with lots of problems that he collected overseas. These problems led to lots of problems in the family and led to his early death when my mom was 15. These were my grandparents. They passed down the good and the bad to my parents. And my parents passed things down to me and to my siblings. Somehow, though, I managed to get most of the good while avoiding much of the bad. But we aren't clones of our parents or of our grandparents. We have also been influenced by hundreds and thousands of other people, right? We've been influenced by the church. I grew up in Allendale, in the Reformed Church of America. I have lots of good memories of the building that we worshiped in. I have good memories of people who have influenced me for the good. I also have ways that I have been affected by individuals for the not so good. And I know that you probably have similar stories about parents and grandparents. I don't know the stories, but I'm certain you have some wonderful memories of your childhood. Right, Arthur? And maybe you have some wonderful memories of churches that you grew up in. Maybe you have some good memories of this place right here, of Holy Trinity. Is there anyone here that grew up here, who was baptized here in this building? Hope you were John? Oh, okay. What year was that you were baptized? Do you remember?
I think mine was 1952.
52?
I was not a baby.
You were not a baby. Hope, were you a baby when you were baptized here?
No, I was a little older than me.
Well, and what year? Maybe I shouldn't ask. Do you remember who the priest was? Either of you?
Harold Perschbacher.
Harold Perschbacher.
I do know. That came after that was teenagers.
Oh.
Was good at home.
Good memories, huh? Good memories. Well, in today's gospel, we have the story not of the death of Lazarus. Jesus had missed the death of his friend, right? But we have the story of a family trying to pick up the pieces after death. We have the story of grief and mourning and the immediate aftermath of the death of a loved one. And Jesus isn't callous to this. He isn't unmoved. He isn't disconnected. The text says that the death of his friend Lazarus causes Jesus to weep. Not cry, but weep. Jesus weeps over the death of his friend and Mary's brother, over Lazarus, who is someone's son. Jesus weeps. And then the story gets weird, right? Jesus goes to the tomb, the cave where Lazarus has been buried and stinks, where he's been dead for 4 days now, and Jesus resurrects him, calls him out of the tomb. Jesus asks God to resurrect Lazarus so that people will believe that Jesus was sent by God. I don't really know what to do with that part of the story. Do you? Some people who were present before the resurrection focused on how much Jesus loved Lazarus, but others did the math. If Jesus can heal blind people, why couldn't he prevent the death of his friend? And if Jesus somehow has the power and the authority to summon God, who will then bring life to those without life, we have lots of theological problems, right? Is the death of Lazarus and his raising just a magic trick so that others will recognize Jesus' connection to the divine? That seems cruel. That seems like Lazarus was just a pawn or a prop. I'm still not sure what to do with that. I don't like that at all. Certainly in John, the Gospel of John, Jesus is much more on the divine side of things than the Jesus in Mark's Gospel. Have you noticed that? Mark's Jesus is much more human. John's Jesus is much more divine. In John, Jesus knows things without being told. He's able to read minds and predict the future. John is the text that we pull much of our Eucharistic prayer from. With any good story, you can dig too deeply, right? You can overanalyze. But I think it is clear that the author of this gospel, John, wants this story to be a precursor, a foreshadowing of the death and resurrection of Jesus himself. A way of connecting God's work of conquering death through Jesus and connecting that with the death of all those connected to the divine. Not even death can separate us from our loved ones. It is also clear, at least to me, that the point of this story, for the purpose of all saints anyhow, is that Jesus is moved emotionally by the death of his friend. That God, through Jesus, is weeping at the death of Lazarus. This story communicates that God loves humanity and that God is connected to that creation in a unique way. A way that humans can understand. That is comforting. That is a theology that I can wrap my mind around. God is with us. And on this feast of all the saints, we remember St. Lazarus. Did he die twice? I don't know. And St. Mary. and Saint Necratius. What other saints with a big S are we remembering today? Saint Andrew? Saint Peter? Who are your favorite saints? That as we remember these giants of the faith, we know that their death mattered to God. That God felt and feels real feelings about the death of these folks who've done so much to pass down a legacy that is worth remembering. These are the shoulders of the giants that we stand on today, right? And we also remember the saints who have not been canonized by the church. We remember them because God remembers them. Because when Grandpa Mel and Grandpa Chris, and Grandma Marie and Grandma Grace died, God wept. God felt sadness. God was emotionally moved and influenced. And the folks that you remember today, the people that you have mourned over and continue to mourn over, God was moved by their death as well. Though these folks are now somehow connected to God in a closer way, there's still room for our grief and for our sadness. And we recognize our own sainthood. You and I. The sainthood of the baptized. Those who have been set aside, immersed in the waters of baptism. On the Feast of All Saints, we also recognize our own sainthood, and that someday we will be mysteriously connected to the other saints who have already gone. Because our Eucharistic theology understands this Holy Eucharist in a way that helps us make sense of all the saints who have gone before us. As we come to this table, to this altar, time is collapsed. All of the saints come together, the living and the dead. Heaven and earth collide, and those who are dead and no longer have physical bodies are united in the Eucharist with those of us who are physically alive. We believe that the veil is lifted between the physical world and the spiritual world. That all of creation comes together in worship as we sing, Holy, Holy, Holy Lord. And this is true for us and for those who gathered in this space since 1888. That all of those folks who have died, all of the Holy Trinity saints are somehow present with us on this day and every time that the Eucharist is made. Pretty spooky, huh? Good story for us around the season of Halloween. I do believe that somehow my grandfathers are present in my life and who I've become. That they've shaped me and formed me for good and for bad, and that my grandmothers have influenced me and left their fingerprints on me for good and for bad. And that the church I grew up in has shaped and formed me, and now this parish, Holy Trinity, is a part of that story in my life as well. I have been influenced and affected by the saints that have been here and who are present here today. I have been affected by you. That seems pretty special, pretty important. The work of this parish is important. And without the work of this parish, my life would be diminished. Many lives would be diminished in this community. And today is our Pledge Sunday, All Saints. Our ingathering Sunday. The day where we pledge to God how we will be committed to this parish for the upcoming year. Just like the saints have done in this place since 1888. We have prayed and considered the cost of our pledges, and now we'll place them on the altar. Because all things come of thee, O Lord. Because all things come of thee, O Lord, and of thine own have we given thee, right? These pledges are acts of gratitude and acts of hope for the future. So today, remember your baptism. Remember those who have gone before us. Drink some Mountain Dew. Eat some fried chicken. stuff some Kleenex up your sleeve. Tell the stories of those close to you and of those close to this parish. Amen.